Hey guys, welcome back.
I'm super excited.
Whoa, guys!
I love it.
Are you excited? I absolutely am.
Let's go.
In the final episodes of our series, all the tension that was built from the first moment when Gallic defied his father really comes to a head.
We've got the band together, we know what their mission is, and we're gonna go pick up a couple new members.
Yizo, will you answer the call?
Restrain this monster!
In episode 6, we meet Yizo, and we learn about the great hardship that this character has faced.
We came up with this kind of a Beauty and the Beast story where Yizo was an artist.
And he made a friend with a child of a banner lord, and he would make these little gifts, and that friendship meant something very deep and special to him, but when it was found out, it wasn't tolerated, and he was punished.
They found my gifts to her, my art, troublesome.
The character is very iconic, and the design is wonderful, but now there's another layer. We've literally painted another picture with Yizo in terms of recontextualizing him as something you may not have thought you were going to get.
Yizo has always been shunned by everyone, right? He's kind of an outsider, even an outsider with his own people.
In Teleria, he's what might be considered a monster. You know, they're almost second, third-class citizens that have been relegated to the sewers and the swamps of the world.
Why would I trust a human?
Because it was her that sent us.
There's this light that spoke to him, that spoke to him as art, right? And he had this need to create and to go out and draw things.
Everything that he's learned about how to develop his imagination as an artist, that's the reason why the Arbiter is able to speak to him.
I never deny inspiration when it strikes me.
Without the paintings that he's done and what he has seen, none of the rest of the story is going to be able to happen.
The decision to basically give him his own art form was really important to us, and we wanted it to be something, you know, really alien, really other. We kind of opted for this like sort of Sumerian cuneiform kind of like abstract interpretation of stuff. He's a different species. We wanted to represent that in the art.
We love this idea of an artist who get his hand cut off. How does he create art without a hand?
I am going to need a weapon. I can make this work.
You could say that he's traded one canvas for another.
It's no paintbrush, but I can work with this.
Yizo was super fun to build. All the big scales had to be modeled because we wanted to control how they move. A rigging system works for all humanoids, but not for Yizo because his legs are not the same, and he has a tail, and he has this big neck and body. We had to think through how to incorporate his lip sync with his big metal jaw.
We knew that we wanted to bring in a boss fight at the end and have the team all work together to bring down the Spider Queen.
This whole episode basically happens underground. This allowed us to do a lot of really cool stuff with lighting. It allowed us to kind of play with distances as well.
We had great concept art coming from Lexanatis, telling us what is the mood they wanted in the sewers.
So we have wide shots, dark and dirty and a bit frightening. So we put a mystery in the image.
You have a regular light coming from holes in the ceiling.
First we add a sunlight. It goes through the window here.
We couldn't have taken a less scenic route.
The episode for Yizo is different than all the other episodes. The instrumentation and the music style is focused more on horror. And throughout this episode, as soon as we leave the prison cell, we go to the Arbiter theme, and then we go to like a pure horror score, where supporting that one character is not important. It's now the gang of brothers who are out, you know, questing and looking for trouble.
At the end of this episode, they find what they set out to seek. They get the Arbiter's breastplate, so now they've got two of the items that they need to bring her back.
Welcome to the team.
In In episode 7, we meet Newt, who's just like any other kid, who wants to go on a grand adventure.
To tomorrow's venture!
But what Newt learns is that not all adventures come in the form of things that you want. If you look at the actual ages of the characters, we realized that something we were missing a little bit was a more youthful point of view. A character who wasn't quite as seasoned.
Newt is the son of the Mountain King. You know, he's the prince and heir apparent to the Dwarven Kingdom. And we meet him at his moment of coming of age.
It's your time, son.
Newt embarks on this quest thinking that it's gonna bring him renown and the favor of his father.
For the Mountain King!
What he actually finds is tragedy. When our characters, Kale and Elhain, meet Newt, he is in a place where the world he knew has been shattered. And from his POV, he is the survivor of a traumatic ordeal. The task for him is to pick himself off the mat and decide if the new quest that's come to him is worthwhile.
And he jumps in at the last minute to save them when they bit off a little bit more than they can chew.
This is where we had to create a new artifact for the Arbiter, because the Arbiter does not have a shield in the game, but we needed something that the Fire Knight could have.
The shield!
We came up with this idea of having his shield where the Arbiter's shield is part of it, but it's like all grimy and crusted over, but you can see that it's part of his shield, so that way after they defeat him, they're able to pry it off.
We had a lot of conversations early on how we wanted our dwarves to be different from other dwarves. The beards have some specific styling on them with like a metal band around them. We put a big emphasis on geometric patterns in some of the designs and like the layering of the designs of their armor.
Big beard, big hair. They are so hairy. Most of them you can't even see their face. It's just a helmet with a beard.
And the Fire Knight is one of the classic bosses from Raid Shadow Legends. We had a lot of fun doing this one.
One of the challenges for the Fire Knight is his head is on fire all the time. We could not achieve that with 2D effect, so we had to put in a 3D fire effect that fits with 2D effects at the same time.
Newt's a dwarf, and he's this feel-good character who is really big on family and companionship, so it's more folk music inspired. It's the lighter side of Viking culture. Of course, when he goes to fight, we have more adrenaline-fueled fight music.
After what happens with the Fire Knight, he actually has a scar over his face. I wanted to show a character from when they were still kind of innocent to now grizzled warrior on a quest.
What is it about that shield?
It's a long story.
Good. You can tell me on the way.
Newt is drawn along on the quest simply as a means to overcome the trauma that he's faced and to overcome his fears, which is just a little kind of evidence that the forces of good don't always appear overtly to us. Sometimes it's just us taking the step that we need to.
In episode 8, we meet Allure for the first time. We meet her as a child.
Humans!
She loses her mom, she's saved by Bad Khazar, and he turns her to his own purposes.
I will make you strong.
The next time that we see her is as an adult, and you get this idea that he's been training her as an assassin, as his personal killer for her entire adult life. Even from the earliest days of Raid's launch, like Allure was one of the most popular characters, and she's also just a badass. We wanted to show her as a child in a moment of loss so that you see her more as a person and more of a three-dimensional individual.
We wanted to kind of show how this young, innocent girl would eventually be used as a pawn.
And at the end of this episode, as Bad Khazar has her open the sword, you see that realization on her face that this was his intent all the time. Even from that first moment that he found her and rescued her, she was a tool.
Allure's texture was made with the same technology as Yizo. We painted the scales and we painted the cracks. The scars evolve on her skin, and then there is an effect to make the light come out of it. Allure's chains were a little more complicated because every piece of the chain has its own freedom, so the rigging was more complex.
Sanctum is one of the smaller sets, but it's still having a lot of details in it, especially the pile of skulls and bones that are all around the room.
It was fun to set dress all these elements.
It's like a catacomb wall.
It's like an hotel, a demonic hotel.
The windows, they look like cathedral-type windows. It's organic, but it's still rock that has been sculpted in a way to look like a kind of a Gothic inspiration.
Allure. She's very interesting. The challenge there was to write something that still gives an idea that she comes from the dark side, but she's not really evil.
A demon.
That was done especially with the choirs by mixing the male and the female choirs together. Especially when we see her childhood, it's more innocent and we know that she's not someone who's done anything to deserve this. That was the mood I needed to get across.
Allure plays a really pivotal role in establishing that there's a lot of ways that these champions can become champions, and also that there's a lot of ways that they can support the Arbiter's overall mission in the world. In this episode, we're picking right up off of episode 8. Our band of heroes come and they find Allure, and she's in the throes of dying from the curse.
Her whole life, the whole momentum and arc of her life, have suddenly been upset.
At no point has the Arbiter given her a sign or an indicator or a symbol. These things exist for every single one of the characters. With this one, they just have to trust her.
You won't tell us where to find Bad Khazar.
A fair trade, if you ask me.
Her only motivation right now is to pursue her own end, and they just kind of have to go with that.
Bad Khazar. Who is he?
I wanted to kind of create this backstory of what kind of person would become Bad Khazar. And the idea is that he had a rival at his school, and at every turn, Arian would always upstage him. As soon as he does the devil's deal, his hand was corrupted, right? He reached out and this black goo comes out from the mirror and has corrupted him.
When Valkanen looks in the mirror, we had about 4 or 5 different ideas of how that could go. The one that we ended up with was that condensed evil touching his arm and binding with his body. And we really wanted that curly-Q pattern that came out that was kind of like reminiscent of vines. Valkanen is trying to show up his rival. He loses control. This power that he's been dabbling with possesses him, and he kills all of his classmates.
He now called out to Siroth.
At that point, he is possessed. I wanted to make him a victim, but to a certain point. And there's this moment where, after he has killed them all, he kind of snaps out of it.
He could have chosen at the last moment to turn himself in, and he did not.
What's happened?
We had to have a real differentiation between Arian and Valkanen. Arian is nice looking, but Valkanen is paler, he has sharper features.
This is the Euro rack, and I use this especially for Bad Khazar. His inner balance is totally out of whack, so I needed something that was really uncomfortable to listen to. It is like a living thing. You can, change the rhythm of these pings. You can make them go, of course, boom, 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 and then you can get everything going. Blah, blah, blah.
We are missing our door!
This episode is the first time you see this Magic Academy, and this doesn't appear in the game. This was something that we created wholly for the series.
We were looking heavily at Moorish influences, some of the Alcazars in like southern Spain, and we wanted this kind of unique architectural identity.
Set off into like the desert, which is an area that hasn't really been explored in the game yet.
It's in between south of Spain and North Africa. It's a flashback, so it's a very golden atmosphere.
He's going to use the sword to unseal the Tower of Beasts.
We've established the characters, we've grown our team. Allure has switched sides.
She's agreed to help them. They have no reason to believe that she's trustworthy.
And then, you could have your revenge.
The series is called The Call of the Arbiter. the Arbiter is not the only one who calls.
Final episode, we pull out all the stops. This is the most epic battle.
Outside the Tower of Beasts, we see this massive plain with lightning and dark clouds. It's ominous, it's spooky, it's scary.
Of course, it's fantasy, so we have to have a dragon. Just like in the game, the core concept is diverse characters working together.
We fight as one!
There's no other way that they're going to be able to fulfill their goal and to stop Battle Khazar.
The characters are coming through this corridor. You get this immense sense of scale. And you get to see that this thing is nothing but chambers of monsters and horrors going all the way up. And you get to see them basically fight their way all the way up to the top.
So originally in the script, it just said Monster 1 and Monster 2, you know, and so when we actually got to those scenes, I was like, okay, we'll use the Dark Fate here, because it becomes a cool fight. She creates the doppelgangers, right? So they get to fight themselves. And then we had the Scarab King, who's kind of this bigger guy, to kind of block their way. Until Yizo basically splits his head, and then they can run past him and get to the elevator.
Come on! Once they get to the top, now it's time for the big showdown with Battle Khazar in the race against time as he completes his ritual.
From a character perspective, this is really important because we saw what Battle Khazar went through when he was Valkyrin, when he was a boy studying at the Mage Academy. He's got to essentially fulfill this quest because otherwise this horrible memory that he has from when he was a child means nothing. So he's at the top attempting to use the Arbiter's blade to access this ancient evil, and then our characters arrive.
And the sword is the key to basically unlock all of these altars, which will then open up this portal.
We finally get to see the justification of the faith that the party has put in Allure, as at the last moment, she's the one who ends up being his undoing.
These characters have been summoned by the Arbiter, but it's Allure who makes a very character-centric decision to fight with them.
And Battle Khazar didn't plan on Allure joining them. And by having that sword, they have all the pieces put together, and the Arbiter shows up.
One of the hardest asks that we gave TeamTo was doing that summoning scene at the end where you've got all those energy cyclones that are going up to the sky to kind of open the portal.
This is the first pass of the vortex. Then we have the core. We have some lightning on the side. This one was one of the most complicated we had because it has so much effects in it.
We have a very red environment for the outside of the Doom Tower, a pretty gray environment inside the Doom Tower, and back to a very red environment on the rooftop. But we had a lot of the effects lighting the scene. So sometimes white, sometimes violet, sometimes green.
In that opening shot where you see all of them kind of in turn as they approach the camera, Jesper Kid noticed that synced up with the music that he did perfectly.
So all the 7 characters have different themes. It was a huge challenge to find a way to mix all those different themes together within one episode.
What we wanted to do was allow you to imagine who the Arbiter is and what she's going to do now that she's returned to the world. Once the Arbiter's back, we know that something really cool is going to happen.
We are not alone, Khazar.
What we've done now with these wonderful 10 short films is laying the groundwork for a series.
And what I think we have, without a doubt, proven is that this universe is ripe not just for exciting spectacle, but also really rich and nuanced character storytelling.
One of those things where there's a lot to still be told.
It's such a vast universe, tons and tons of characters, 750 plus champions.
The world that Plarium has created is so rich. There's so many different places you can go with it that the possibilities are kind of endless.
Finishing this limited series, seeing everything go from concept to like big idea to storyboard to animatic to render, just watching it all come together and watching all of these different people who've contributed to this project has been one of the most incredible experiences of my life.
That's the biggest thing with art and storytelling and everything, is that if you can find something that's inspired, then you know you're on the right path.
A lot of people are asking what comes next. We want to take this further. We want to see what happens next.
Raid is a massive world, and Call of the Arbiter is just the beginning. Just stay tuned, there's going to be some really awesome stuff coming.